So thank you everybody for joining today. We are talking about on-demand app generation. I am going to make it a little bit smaller and call it ODAG for future purposes, just because it is quite a mouthful to sort of keep saying as we go through the presentation. So we are planning on doing a short introduction just to familiarise yourself with the team if you haven't met us anyway already, or even seen us do other webinars before. We'll be talking about big data and the processes and why ODAG is quite important for that. The process as well of how it all works, alongside some use cases and some advantages of using this technology as well. Following this, Chris will be doing a demonstration for you as well, and then we're going to be having a dedicated Q&A session as well at the end of the presentation. So just a quick reminder of our faces. If you haven't met us or spoken to us before, these are our contact details as well. And all three of us, so Chris, Neil and I, will be participating in today's webinar just to kind of guide you through everything. So as I said earlier, Chris will be doing our demonstration as the head of consulting services. Neil will be helping me with the question and answer session, so helping us sort that out. And I'll just be doing the presentation for you, which will be starting literally now. So just before we do start again, ODAG is available in SaaS as well as the client managed deployment preferences as well. For today's purposes, Chris will be showing us how it all works in SaaS, but if you do want a more detailed conversation about how it works within the client managed platform, please do get in touch with us and we can take you through that as well. So ODAG allows you to filter and make selections from a large data set that you have within the organization to help you create the on-the-fly applications, which you can then customize to create the view that you need. That's a very, very high level summary of what it helps you do. It works well when you have huge sets of data and want to have sight of it all, and still want to be able to have the flexibility to choose and select which data you want to make those applications with. It works really well with like billions of rows of data, but I know Chris will talk you through how it could work with businesses who have slightly smaller sets of data as well, so you can understand exactly how this can work for you and start maximizing from it too. The process can be relatively simple in the sense that you can view your summary data that you have. There's a summary data app that is created for you, and start to make the relevant selections to filter down on the data that you actually want to use. You will then be able to go down to the bottom left-hand screen, I believe, of the corner of the screen, sorry, which again Chris will show you, and start actually generating the application once that data has been extracted. And you repeat those steps again and again until you actually get the desired applications that you need. Some of the benefits and use cases for you is that it helps you create a shopping-like experience to enable you to interact with the data and populate the apps that you actually want to use and need. It provides you with the full set of functionality in Qlik Sense when you have a latent subset of data that is hosted necessarily in memory as well. One of the best things about it is it enables the IT teams to govern how large data can actually be and used based on the data volumes that you have within the environment as well. What we're going to do now as well is just go straight into a demonstration. What I have done is just given you a quick introduction as to how ODAG can work for businesses, but it's always really cool for you to see how it will work within within Qlik itself. So Chris is joining me now. He will be sharing his screen and we'll be taking you through a demo of how it all works.
So yes, I'll be going through on-demand app generation, or ODAG as I refer to it today. ODAG is a big data solution within Qlik. So before we go straight into the demo, I just want to touch on what is big data. So I've taken this definition from Gartner. So they refer to big data as being high volume information assets that demand cost-effective forms of information processing. So that's all very well and good, but it's still quite ambiguous. So what I'm going to do is just put it into Qlik terms. So from a Qlik perspective, big data refers to data that's so large or complex that data models surpass the in-memory limitations or calculations start to perform slowly or unresponsive. So big data isn't necessarily billions of rows of data. It could still be millions or fewer. It's all dependent on the infrastructure that you're using Qlik, that you're loading the data into. So if you're using SAS as an example, out the box, one of the limitations is the 5 gigabytes for in-memory usage within that SAS capacity. There is expanded capacity, there is dedicated capacity that you can add as an add-on, but those start to become less and less cost effective. So what we're looking at today is a cost effective solution to handling many rows of data. And in some cases, data models, even though it's not got millions or billions of rows of data, can still be quite fast due to complexity of the underlying data that it's representing. If we then look at what that actually is then, so ODAG, or on-demand app generation, is a workflow. It's a way of getting to your data, to the granular data. So in this particular app, again, I'm not using masses of data, this is just a demo, but in this case, we've just got 98,000 rows of data, but we have seen Qlik solutions with hundreds of millions or even billions of rows of data in a single app. So what you do with a selection app, and that's what I'm in right now, is you'll load the data in with some kind of aggregation. So in this case, we've aggregated to a country level, but you might aggregate it to a date, year, whatever it might be. It's up to you to produce that. But typically it will be pre-aggregated, but it will still show the key metrics. So in this case, we're looking at COVID data. So we've still got metrics around total cases. We've still got data around hospital admissions and so on. So I can still get to my key metrics there. I can still shop for the data, as Sharon touched on there. I can still drill into it, but I've not got the ultimate granularity within this particular application. So it's still a way to effectively apply the selections to be able to discover the data or a subset of that data that you want to then go ahead and do some analysis on top of. So here we've got this selection app, and within the selection app, you'll have this navigation link. Now you might have one or more of these navigation links. Each navigation link is towards a application or a detailed application. And if I click on the information here, you can then see that I've got some constraints on here. So in this case, this particular app is implying that I need to reduce the data down to 1,000 rows of data. Now, this is adjustable. It's totally based on your preferences. This could be 10,000. This could be 100,000. Could be 1 million records that you want to the user to reduce the data by. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and make some selections. So if I go ahead and click on the UK, because that's the country we're in, and that's the country that I'm interested in doing some analysis on top of, you can see now that the on-demand navigation link has now turned green. So I've met the primary constraint there. I've now got 534 rows of data, and I've met that condition. But as a developer, you can also apply further constraints at a field level as well. So not just over the data itself, but you can actually enforce that someone has to make a selection in one of these fields. And in this case, we've got a field selection or an enforced field selection in the year. So I'm telling the user they've got to select a single year's worth of data, but you can allow them to select 1 or more years or 2 or fewer years and so on. It's entirely up to you how you want to govern this and how you want to implement these constraints. So now that I've met the conditions, you can see all of them have got checks. I can now go ahead and generate this application. When I generate the app, you'll see that this will spin up a new app on the fly, so it is on demand as we suggest. And what it's actually doing behind the scenes is based on the selections that we've got in the top breadcrumb list at the top there, it's actually passing those selections through to the detailed app, and it's effectively building out the where clause. So it is pulling the data live from either your SQL data source or from QVDs in this example, and there within a couple of seconds, we've actually generated a new app with data at the most granular level. So if I just go back to the workflow here, and that's what it is. It is a workflow. We've got the selection app and we've made our selections. We've selected the navigation link, which has then produced an app on the fly based on a template app. Those template apps you set up in advance, so they're predefined scripts and they're predefined visualizations, but they have dynamic where clauses within the scripts. So any selections I make here will then get passed through, and it will then reduce the data down and pull the data, generating it on the fly. So previously you saw that I generated this app. Now I can go ahead and go and open this up, but before I do, I'll just go through some of the other options here. So here you can see that we've got an app status, and that's reloaded successfully. You can see the selections we had at the time that we generated this app, and you can also look at the load progress there as well. Now, importantly, if someone wants to go ahead and generate multiple apps on the fly, they can do, providing you permit them to do so. They can reload their current app at any point in time. They can regenerate it with the current selections. So if you selected other selections in the past, you can regenerate those, and you can actually take a copy of those. There is a retention period that you can impose on there as well. So I've got this set to 2 days, but you can have one that doesn't expire, or one that expires after a couple of hours, as an example. So I'm going to go ahead and open this app up, and this will log me straight into the sheet. So as part of creating that navigation link, I actually set up which sheet we should enter on. And what you'll notice here, if I go back to the summary app, we have 198 rows of data, and that's pre-aggregated. If I go into the detailed app with those selections it's passed through, so we looked at 2021 in this case for the UK, and I can verify that by going to my selections up at the top there. So here we can see we've got just the United Kingdom. We've actually exploded that out to the most granular level, and it's now got 19,000 rows of data in there. So I can carry on, I can perform my analysis as I expect. Like I said before, these will have other sheets in there. It doesn't have to be the same sheets. It can have further dashboards, reports, visualizations, other metrics, other data sets in here. So in this particular app, we've actually brought through the vaccinations as well. It doesn't have to be limited based on the summary app. You're just passing through that where clause. So there's typically going to be an association somewhere along those lines. Now, for those that have seen ODAG in the past and might have even implemented ODAG, it's worth noting that it's been heavily simplified. So it's a lot more simple to implement. Previously, it used to require a lot of syntax. But if we go to one of the template apps that I've got open, or the template app we just used there, I'm just going to give this a quick refresh. You actually see that all that's required now is that where clause. So Qlik have done a really good job of simplifying this out. So all we've got is a simple match based on the fields that I'm interested in, reducing the data by, so in this case, location, continent, and date. And there I pass in the variables. Now these variables don't actually reside in the app, it's what's passed through. So all you need to do is prefix the variable name with ODAG underscore, and then follow it by the field name that you're passing through. So in this case, location, continent, and year. Now, if you remember when we looked at the summary app, we had a condition, a constraint that it must be a single selection, a single value selected within that particular field. To achieve that, all you need to do is suffix the variable with this 1 in the square brackets, and that implies that there must be one value selected. I can do one or more values by adding the plus in there, or if I want to do 2 or fewer values selected, I can do the 2 minus. Now, when you generate that app, if I go back to the generated version of it, if I go to the script editor, you'll then see that 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 where clause is then populated with the values that we selected before we generated it. So that gives you a really good idea of how ODAG is implemented, what it's used for. And I'll hand you back over to Sharon.
Thanks, Chris. I just wanted to, oh, I've lost my screen. I found it. Yeah, so thank you ever so much, everybody, and Chris, for providing that demonstration to us. It's been really, really useful. We're going to go over into a Q&A session now. So if you would like to ask a question, if you wouldn't mind just raising your hand, which should be at the top, a sort of taskbar for you, we can then let you in and have a really interactive session. You can ask the question and we can go to Chris and even Neil for an insight of the answer as well. So Neil, have you had any any questions?
I have. I've had one or two come through anyway.
Perfect.
So I've got, how long does it take to set up, Chris?
So once you've created your app, your detailed app, all it requires is adding those where clauses in like we saw before. So it's once you've built the app and you've got it to the standard that you want, adding that where clause is, minutes as opposed to, hours. So it's very quick and easy to set up. And then it's just adding the navigation link. That adding the navigation link is just a user interface to do so. And again, it takes a couple of minutes to set those up.
Okay. I've got Phil asking, of course you did, Phil. Is it a chargeable license? Well, I can answer that one. So no, it isn't. We don't like using the F word, but yes, this one is free. And then I think linked to that, we've got a question: is this SaaS and on premise? And I think you actually did confirm that at the beginning, didn't you, Sharon? So yes,
Yep.
it is available with both.
Yeah, it's just worth noting that ODAG isn't turned on by default. So there is a switch in the management console that you do just need to enable in order to get access to the navigation links and for it to ultimately work.
Right. Okay. And then I've got a last question. Sorry, it's a slightly confusing one. Let me try and interpret it. Do we have to use? Sorry, does this run alongside our normal applications? And I think the answer to that is yes, isn't it? This is really more for if you've got really large data.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so exactly that. It's just when you've got large or complex data that might potentially exceed those limitations, either on your client managed server or in the SaaS tenant, where it might hit the resource limits, and it's just a way of handling that. So you can just spoon feed effectively your users by giving them aggregated data to begin with, because that's the level that they might just need. And in some circumstances, you can just give them the aggregated data and they might be happy with that. But if they do want to look into, and analyze the detail, the ultimate, the granular records, that's where ODAG comes in handy. So they might look at the summary app and that might be absolutely perfectly fine. They don't need to go any further, but it's in those instances where they might need to look at problem records or just find those problem records and then generate that detail to get to the raw data effectively.
Okay, fair enough. And I've got a question from James who says that in our example, do we have all of the data in a single QVD or do you have lots of QVDs?
The answer can be both. So in the example we've just got a single QVD, but there could be multiple QVDs with those where clauses applied. So there might be a mixture of applying the where clauses or doing things like left join if the fields that you're filtering on don't exist in the QVDs or some of the QVDs. So there'll just be typical data modeling considerations that you have to apply to that.
Okay. And that's about it for the questions, unless anybody else has any that want to type in quick or put their hand up. No, I don't think so. All right. Back to
Okay.
you, Sharon.
Thank you. I guess all it is now for us is just to say thank you for attending. If you do have any questions off of the back of this webinar, do let us know. And if there's anything that you would like to see that we haven't covered already, please, again, get in touch and we'll be more than happy to organize something and just start conversations with you individually. Our next webinar is actually going to be on the 23rd of September as well. So just a quick plug here for you if you enjoyed today's webinar and all of the other content sessions that we've put together. We will be discussing hybrid data delivery on the 23rd of September. So we will be sending out some information and some emails through that as well. And it's going to be on the same platform because I think it's fair to say that Teams has been a success for us and we will continue to use it as a webinar platform. So yes, thank you very much, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.